Hi everyone, I'm Jackie Michimyaki and I am so happy that you've joined me today because once again I have a great program for you. Recently, my good friend, former Congressman Mike Sodrell of Indiana and evangelist Mario Murillo recorded a conversation right here in our High Adventure studios. They discuss the Congressman's book, Citizen Sheep, Government Shepherds. I know you will enjoy this honest discussion of what America was really designed to be.
God bless you. This is Mario Murillo. I'm doing something very important today. I'm interviewing a congressman who's also a man of God. You don't often hear those two terms together, but Mike Sodrell is also the author of a very powerful book, and it's called Citizen Sheep, Government Shepherds. And I wanted to welcome you and tell you how honored I am to be able to interview you today, Mike.
Well, thanks, Mario. The honor's mine. Glad to be here.
Let's jump right into it. What is a citizen sheep?
Well, I'm often asked how I picked the title for the book, and I said, after all, they herd us and they shear us and they swear they're doing it because they love sheep, right?
Right.
The government shepherds do.
Yep.
Yep.
And in writing this book, when I read it, it absolutely revolutionized me. And I just can't say enough about how much I recommend this book. And when I read it, I was intrigued, inspired, and frankly, there was a little bit of a jolt, because we have lost our freedom in this country. Mm-hmm. We've lost it for the worst reason, because we're ignorant of how our government works. Now, tell us about that.
Well, I ran across so many people that don't know how government works, don't really understand governance. They hear terms like the left and the right, and they hear socialist or communist or capitalist, or but they really fascist. They don't know what that means. And I tried to boil it down to simple English. In fact, one of my mechanics was one of the first to order the book off the internet.
Wow.
He stopped me in a shop one day and he said, he said, as long as you were working on this book, he said, I didn't know how long it was going to be. And I said, well, Bill, it takes a long time to write a really short book. If I was going to write a long book, I could have done that quicker.
Yeah.
He looked at me funny. I said, I spent all my time trying to make the chapters shorter and the paragraphs shorter and the sentences shorter and the words shorter.
I can tell you from reading the book, the first impact it had on me is how ignorant we are of what our founding fathers had in mind in creating the United States. And what I want to say is this: we're living to see the exact tyranny they wrote the Constitution to avoid. And the people that are watching, I think the alarm isn't enough. Too many times people are written off as conspiracy theorists and reactionaries. But we really are watching our Constitution being destroyed.
We really are. In some cases it's overt, in some cases it's covert. Some places, it's deliberate, some it's just through ignorance. And but it's being chipped away at.
Okay, what I want to ask is this: the average person doesn't feel the tyranny directly. That's why I think they allow it. And when you say citizen sheep, my immediate thought was that sheep tend to listen to other sheep. They run toward the momentum. They don't go against the grain. They
tend to run in a herd, go the same direction.
And specifically now, the Constitution, I said this before, and I'm going to make this a direct question. I'm a student of the Bible. And it's an honor to be with you who've served in Congress and understand how our way of life works and why it's so precious. And again, if you just tuned in, I'm here with Congressman Mike Sodrell from Indiana. And I'm just having the time of my life talking to this wonderful man. The Constitution, as Jackie Yaki said, is not written in Latin. It's written for the common man.
Sure.
The founding fathers felt that. One of the issues was that an elite group in England had seized the power, King George, and thereby stripping the people of self-governance, which is something that we have in this country. And they don't know what that a pure democracy would be a disastrous thing in the United States. We're something else. We're not a pure democracy.
That's merely tyranny by a majority rather than tyranny by a minority.
Correct.
It's still tyranny.
You had a wonderful quote from Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, Jefferson said that democracy is nothing but mob rule, where 51% are able to take away the rights of the other 49%.
Exactly. What is the warning that's in your book? What are you trying to warn us about?
Well, it's the loss. If I had to boil it down to a sentence, it's a loss of individual liberty, which is what the revolution was all about.
I want to get to something that really deeply is burning in my soul. We've talked about our president using executive action to overstep his authority. Mm-hmm. We've seen it on immigration. We've seen it in several actions that he did that, in my opinion, are totally un-American. I'm sorry, I've never made my position unclear to people. What I'm seeing is that the average American doesn't understand. It seems like science fiction to them, but our government literally now is dismantling our individual rights. That's happening. And your book, what it does, it lays out something for me. We can learn what our Constitution teaches.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and address the urgency of the hour we're living in America.
I mean, we're a real tipping point here. We may well reach a point of no return, where you can't bring the society back to a free society. And it's all due to a lack of education. People have not educated themselves into our form of government. They don't bother to educate themselves into the various candidates. They listen to what they say and don't look to see what they do. And I've tried to explain to people that politicians will lie. Oh, did I say that? So you can't take their word for it. As Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. Go look it up.
That was what I was hoping you would say. And one of the things I walked away with from the book when I read it is the clarity. It's written so clearly. And things that I thought I knew about our government. I didn't do too bad in civics, but I really was reacquainted. And it made this book made me love America again. In a way, I always loved America, but it made me love America again. I think anyone that gets into this is going to find themselves wanting to know more about how our system of government works, why that is so important to know, and how many statements we make that are so inaccurate. What are some of the highlights in the book that you feel Americans really need to know, misconceptions they might have that they need clarified? You said something about our definition of left and right, and some of this you really set on its ear.
Yeah, because it took me years to understand the difference between Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. The old Soviet Union, USSR, was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And the Nazi was just a nickname. The actual party name was the National German Socialist Workers' Party. So if Stalin was a socialist and Hitler was a socialist, I mean, what's the difference between a communist and a fascist? It's like, it was really confusing.
Right.
What were they fighting over? And if you distill it down to, and I tried to distill it down to one word where I could, and the one word difference between a communist and a fascist is the difference between ownership and control.
There it is.
The communists felt like the government had to own everything. So Stalin killed off the bourgeois, the middle class, the farmers, the factory owners, the small business people, and he confiscated all the property for the state. Well, Hitler, on the other hand, didn't really care who owned it as long as he controlled it.
It's hard when people in the media, they hijack terminology and they diffuse and deflect. when I had the honor of having lunch with our congressman, Mike Sodrell here from Indiana, I had the honor of asking you some things behind the scenes, and I'm very alarmed. I'm very angry. I don't like Washington, D.C. right now. I just as soon build an 80-foot electric fence around the whole thing and just start over, because I think they're doing way more harm than good. The call that I got, what I came away with, because I'd already been active in blurring the line between a preacher and a prophet, speaking to issues in the American system of government, because I believe that evil is at work. In your opinion, right now, how would you speak to people, like to say to them, this is what you need to be doing right now, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to be doing? Because I got worked up, but I don't want to speak for you.
No, they need to get, first of all, educated with our form of government, what it's supposed to be, and kind of hold that up against what it currently is. Ask questions. Most of these candidates will have town halls or the meetings where you can go in and ask questions, and there's a lot of public data available on them. You know, but people used to ask me, if you have a majority, why don't you get this done and something else done? And I had to explain to them there's two different kinds of majority. There's a numeric majority, which we had, but there's also a philosophical majority, which we never had. Unfortunately, everybody that's of one party is not necessarily of one mind. They don't necessarily believe all the same things. You know, it makes it difficult. And the other difficulty right now is, if you pass legislation, let's say, for example, an executive order is issued and you think it's either unconstitutional or it's not wise, so Congress passes a law that countermands that executive order. Well, immediately, what's going to happen? The president will veto the legislation. So now it goes back to the House and the Senate, and it takes 2/3 majority of both houses to override the veto.
Which you would think we would have right now, but we don't.
No, it wouldn't happen. So, you know, that's what I said. You got a numeric majority. You don't have a supermajority, and you don't have a philosophical majority, and that makes it really tough.
Well, we have widespread citizen apathy. So that's what I get from the sheep. You mentioned during lunch, you said something about the snowflake analogy.
Sure.
I found that very powerful. The number one problem with our youth is they don't believe their vote matters. They believe the game is rigged, and there's something. So we need to restore the belief that we can make a difference.
And as I told you, one snowflake doesn't amount to anything either.
And I think one of the other impacts the book had on me was it reminded me on a civics level of what Bill O'Reilly's book, Killing Lincoln, did for my view of history. Right or wrong, whether anybody has a negative view of Bill O'Reilly is irrelevant, because even the most seemingly unfavorable historians have looked at Killing Lincoln and said, we need this in our schools. It made it come alive.
Yeah.
And anyone watching right now, I just want to recommend this book because it makes your knowledge of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and basically and essentially how our system of government works, it makes it come alive. Well, and that's very important.
And you really have to take the two documents together, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Because the Declaration of Independence just basically says, here's why we're doing what we're doing. And the Constitution says, here's how we're going to do it. You know, it's like you start out with the premise when Jefferson penned the line that said, we are endowed by our Creator, a Creator, with certain unalienable rights. That among these rights is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But he goes on to say that to secure these rights, in other words, to secure these God-given rights, governments are instituted amongst men.
The issue of God in government in your book. Here is the part that I wanted to ask you about, is that I believe that Jefferson was very clear that the rights that we were to protect were given to us by God, the recognition of God. Mm-hmm. There is a significance to the removal of God right now. I believe that removing God from America is essential to the next stage of the tyranny that's in this nation. And,
I think you're
I
right.
believe that.
2 Corinthians, 3rd chapter, 17th verse says, "The Lord is a spirit, and where the spirit is, there is liberty." It's in
Wow.
the scripture. You know,
Wow.
liberty is God granted, and it's scriptural. You know, it's like, but we're losing it, you know, bit by bit by bit.
I believe people are inoculated, that if you tell a lie long enough, people believe it. And right now, when I was doing a lecture recently, I stood up there and I said, how did you aging hippies who stood for free speech in the 70s find yourself today doing everything in your power to strip people of their freedom of speech? How did you become anti-free speech? They do it through political correctness, by creating phobias, Islamophobia, homophobia. Anytime they want to destroy the dialogue so that freedom of expression isn't felt. I got worked up by the part of your book where you talked about citizens waking up, taking back what was theirs,
Yeah.
and being active in thinking and considering. What I want to say is that I believe at this moment, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, so I'm taking you off the hook, Brother Mike. I do believe there is a sympathy for Islam, an animosity toward Israel, that none of these biases and angers that we are seeing right now are based in fact, based in logic, but they're based in the fact that there is that old saying that says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So whoever is for Christian values, whoever is for Israel, is our enemy. And at this moment, Americans need to realize that, and I've said this before, America is not going to make it unless there's a change. Christianity, on the other hand, will survive. You see, Christianity can survive without America, but America cannot survive without Christianity.
Yeah.
And that's why I take your book to be a real call to action.
Well, I hope it is.
Yeah.
But it was also to try. You know, the first step is you have to understand what it is you're trying to salvage.
Right.
What is it you're trying to save here? And I think not enough people really understand how valuable. I sometimes use the saying that your ancestors left you a Rembrandt, and you treat it like a comic book or the funny papers or something. I don't know. It's like that. It's just not. They don't understand the value of what they have.
And the blood that was spilled to make it possible.
Millions. You know, we expended hundreds of thousands of lives. I mean, World War II alone, 400,000 killed. That doesn't count the maimed and the permanently injured that we had from the Second World War. They go all the way back to the Revolutionary War. You know, World War I. I mean, it's we paid a dear price to achieve liberty, and we've paid a dear price to defend it.
I believe the founding fathers would be enraged at the current state of America. They would be enraged.
No question, and they understood government. George Washington said, when he described it once, he said, government is not reason. He said it's not eloquent, it's force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearsome master. You know, I mean, they all understood it. You know, Franklin said, a man who will trade his liberty for a little temporary security deserves neither.
Exactly.
You know?
And what you just said, that quote right there, which I want to focus on that for a minute. We don't deserve freedom in America. We don't deserve it if we're not willing to wake up.
Yeah.
If we think that you can get a cell phone, you can get all your bills paid, you can, from the cradle to the grave, everything you need will be taken care of by government, and you don't do a basic physics science test of saying, where is the money for all of that going to come? And the idea that America never guaranteed you happiness, it gave you the opportunity to seek it.
Right.
And it gave you the rights to pursue it in an even playing field.
Yeah, an analogy I used in the book, when I was talking to an employee one day that thought some of these government, I shouldn't say government provided, taxpayer provided benefits were a good thing. I said, I said, there are two places that I'm confident you could find a lion today if you were to ask me. I said, one would be in Africa, in the Serengeti. If you look around long enough, you'll find a lion or a pride of lions. Or you could just go over to the Louisville Zoo. Now, that zoo lion, he doesn't have to worry about being food or finding food. They come in there and throw the food in 3 or 4 times a day, and he's got water, he's got shelter, and if he gets the sniffles, he's got a veterinarian. Doesn't cost him anything. The only thing that lion had to give up to get all that was his liberty.
That's it.
And we're building this cage one bar at a time, and you're not going to notice until that door slams shut.
Yep.
And then say, "Gee, how did I get here?"
Yep. And there is a lot of criticism of speaking the way you're speaking out. And I think that when the day that our freedoms are taken from us, which I wish I could say that something has happened to make me believe that day won't be here. What we're saying today will not seem radical. It will not seem excessive. It will not seem angry. But it will seem like sanity. This is sanity. This is a book
this
about
is rational
sanity.
thinking, yes.
Yep. Yeah. So many things I want to ask you about. When people say terms like the Federalist Papers, and they think about Madison and Adams and these men,
Hamilton,
and
that wrote it.
The tyranny they were concerned about.
One of the biggest things they were worried about is the executive branch passing laws, issuing laws, and and that's why they separated the 3 branches. And, there more people can name the 3 Stooges today than can name the 3 branches of government, or explain what they're here for. And I always forget the other one. There's Moe and Curly, and I can't remember the name of the other one. But I know the 3 branches of government.
Well, Moe, Larry, and Curly. And it's amazing how much our government is starting to resemble those 3 gentlemen.
But
it's frightening, isn't it?
It's the job of the executive branch to enforce laws only, not to pass laws. I mean, it's the legislative branch's job to pass legislation, and the judicial's job to interpret it. But what we have is an executive branch that's making law, and that's not what was intended by this Constitution.
We have so little time left, and I want to just bring it into one focused cry that there are a lot of people that are going to watch this that are praying for America, praying for our nation. They're asking God to intervene. I think that the statement that the executive branch of our government, and let's put a name on it, Barack Obama, is frenzied. He's operating from some kind of an agenda. It's not bringing prosperity. It's not bringing unity. It's dividing the nation. It's tearing us apart. It's diminishing our role in the nation. How would you recommend Christians that are watching right now that care about America and care about Israel to pray?
The worst thing I hear Christians say is, well, all you can do is pray. And I said, no, I don't think God expects you to lean on a shovel and pray for a hole.
Exactly.
I think he wants you to do some digging.
Come on.
So hey, let's go pray and then go do some digging. You got to take part in your government. I don't care if it's city council, school board, county council. Go to the meeting. Watch them in action. Ask questions. Run yourself. Run somebody you know. Help somebody in the campaign.
I got one more. Buy this book.
Okay.
Because this is a wonderful, wonderful primer for you to become reacquainted with the country that we love so much. And thank you today for this. This has been an amazing interview for me. I mean, I'm honored to have met you and work with you, Mike, and I think we're going to work together in the future, okay?
Well, look forward to it.
I'm putting you on the spot in front of nationwide television.
I hope that this program has been a blessing to you as former Congressman Mike Sadro and Mario talked about citizen sheep and government shepherds. You can order a copy of this book at MikeSodrel.com. Now, as we close today's program, I want to pray. I want to pray that the Lord will bless your life. Father, I pray today in the name of Jesus that the people who are watching are going to be blessed. And Lord, they're going to be inspired, and that you are going to direct their paths. I thank you for each one of them who is a partner and a blessing to High Adventure Ministries. Hey, thanks for watching. See you next time.
Voice of Jerusalem with Jackie Mitchum-Yaki is made possible with the generous support of High Adventure Ministries partners. Be sure to request a copy of our monthly newsletter, which features ministry updates and a special letter from Jackie. Also, visit highadventure.org, where you can listen to the Voice of Hope, which is our radio channel from Jerusalem, Israel, and watch the HATV channels, which include our Holocaust Survivor series, and much, much more. You can contact us by calling 1-800-517-HOPE. That's 1-800-517-4673. Or write to us at High Adventure Ministries, P.O. Box 197569, Louisville, Kentucky 40259. We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for joining us for this edition of Voice of Jerusalem with Jackie Mitchum-Yaki.
So